less. The size I can surmise roughly as, think of the brightest star multiplied by 20 to 30 times, and that's about the size. Well, it made me shout, F me, excuse my French, but that's what I said at the time, attracting attention of my mate. But by the time he turned round, it had gone. He said it might be a meteor, but no way, this was too large, and it went in a straight line and was low. Okay, now, I've been investigating these two further cases, which happened this summer, 300 and 600 in two fields nearby, and I've made a few contacts there in the farming industry. Now, this guy has got I can't name him because it was given to me in confidence, but it's all recorded, and he's got quite a responsible role in the farming industry. He's not someone who's going to make things up. And what he said to me was that the shepherd had been taking 40 to 50 in a trailer every so often from the farm and selling them at an abattoir. I said to him, well, what about the ear tags? Because they're all electronically tagged. He can't just take someone else's sheep and sell them. He says, he laughed. This is someone who's in the farming industry and deals with buying and selling animals. He said, abattoirs don't scan ear tags. He said, they'll take sheep off anyone. So for all it is regulated, it's not policed, right? I said, okay. I said, well, how sure are you of this source then? He says, oh, absolutely, but I can't give you his name because he's someone who actually works on that estate. He says, but take it from me, that's what was happening. Now, that would explain the evidence. The fact that what he said is this guy is so wealthy, 1,500 sheep was absolutely nothing to him, and his eye wasn't on the ball, this extremely wealthy landowner, and the shepherd just one day thought, oh, well, I'll just sell a few, and then he sold a few more, and then at some point it was noticed, right? So he then had to concoct a story and just said, oh, well, they've all been taken. But the point being that the detective has just bought the story, hook, line and sinker, and gone on BBC Radio and reported the whole thing. He hasn't reported the evidence correctly. There's no evidence of any trucks. The gate was still locked. There's no evidence of any droppings in the field, which is what he should have done. Now, I don't rule out a UFO connection, right? But I think based on what this guy tells me, I'm more inclined to accept the more mundane explanation. However, I do think there is an undisclosed aerial vehicle flying around in that region. Okay. Now let's look at these other two cases that I've looked into this summer. The first one is about 15-20 miles north of the 1500, and this is 600 went missing. This is on the 2nd of June this year. So this is the story in Mail Online. It said, where did my sheep go? Farmers despair as rustlers with sheepdog steal entire flock, 600 in the dead of night. Now this is a slightly more populated area. There's a small village here. The field they were taken from is here, at this entrance here, marked A. This is the farmer. Now just look at that photograph. This is taken the day after they were taken from the field they were taken. Where's the evidence of rustling? Where's the evidence that a pen's been built? Where's the shit on the ground? Okay, I would have there's another photograph from the same article, clean as a whistle. And another one. I would expect it to look more something akin to that, right? So I've done my own artist's impression of what I think it should look like. So that raises suspicion in my eye straight away. So the article went on to say, police believe the raiders even brought their own sheepdog so they could round up the sheep quietly and load them onto a massive multi-tiered transporter at the remote rural location. Not a single witness of a multi-tiered transporter. They're assuming it. There were no witnesses. It was thought the flock was targeted by organised crime. Why was it thought that? In what is believed to be one of Britain's biggest sheep rustling operations. Mr. Steeper and his wife Natalie now may be forced to give up as a result of the theft. All the animals were microchipped, so without proper paperwork, the rustlers could sell them only to backstreet abattoirs. That's bollocks. Mr. Steeper said yesterday, I drove past on Wednesday morning and there were no sheep in the field and the gate was wide open. Then I realised the chain and padlock had been cut, but I could not believe they had taken the blooming lot. They must have been stolen to order. PC Tracy Teal of Humberside Police said, this is the biggest livestock case I have ever come across. The family have been victims of organised crime. They are very upset. They have been targeted in this way. It is a nice little village and everyone is shocked. Alright, so when I saw that, I think, not sure I buy all of that. So I put a message out on Facebook to ask if there was anyone lived nearby to go and take photographs. And this chap, John Preston, obliged. So he went there. Okay, it was 10 days later by the time he got there to take photographs, and it had rained since. So you can see, since he took the photographs, 10 days later, you've got these tyre tracks going in, tractor tracks, which clearly been made after this photograph. But we did a little report. I went up there to meet him just to get a witness account of what he saw. There's regular traffic along this road even at night. It's not a quiet road. If you continue a few miles ahead of me there, you end up at Humberside Airport. This is the only point that a truck could have feasibly got in. So it splits off into two separate fields. The one on the left is not gated, so we don't think the sheep were taken from that field. We'll come round to the right here, and this is the gates that Jason Steeper was pictured at.
Well, the first thing we looked at, once we'd identified the field from the pictures in the Telegraph, we had a walk along the hedgerow, surmising that maybe some lorries had parked up on the roadside, and we then looked for any evidence of any sheep movement. There was no droppings anywhere. There was no evidence of any wool on either of the bushes or on the floor at all. So we then surmised that possibly the trucks came through this way into the field through this area here. The first thing what struck me though was this very sharp dog leg, and we've also got a quite deep ditch just there. Whether a large vehicle could get through there, I don't know. There was no sign of any tyre tracks going into the field, only these old ones. The main ones you could see was near the gate. There was obviously tractor tyres. The only tracks we did notice from the gate was, they looked like 4x4 tracks going into the gate and following this side of the field all the way as far as we could see. They didn't look deep, they didn't look particularly wide apart. It suggested to us that it was a 4x4 type of vehicle what had made those tracks. And also through the gate there was no evidence again of any sheep movement through the gate or in that area at all, no droppings or wool around there at all. And we noticed when we was at the gate looking over the field, there's a small manor house just right at the very back of the field where you can see the top story windows looking over the field.
Right, so it seems there's no physical evidence of rustling there. Now, one thing I've learned, when you ring the police up, you first find out who the investigating officer is, but they will always refuse to give you any information because that's their policy. But what I've noticed is if you give them information, especially if they're not aware of it, they will give you information. So try and find something that they're not aware of first before you ask them the pertinent question. So I've chopped this interview down a bit just to give you a few of the pertinent points of the phone call.
Hello, Trace Teal, Ashford Police Station.
Hello there, my name's Richard Hall. I'm just ringing in connection with the stolen sheep at Melton Ross on the 2nd of June.
All right, yeah, I got a message earlier on to contact you, Richard.
Yeah, I was just wondering, are you aware of previous very large rustling incidents, particularly one in September 2011, a place called Donington, about 12 miles south of Melton Ross?
No, I'm not.
Right. Okay, there was 1,500 went missing. I know you were quoted in the press as saying that it's one of the biggest livestock cases you've ever seen.
Yes.
The one at Donington, there were 1,500 went missing on one night. The person who investigated it was Detective Constable Nick Jones, and I think he was at Skegness Police Station.
So it was in the Lincolnshire Police area, was it?
Yeah.
Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah. See, it said in the media that there was a dog. Now, I'm not aware of any evidence that a dog was used, other than the fact that it's assumed.
Yeah.
I mean, would that be the case, that it was assumed that a dog was used rather than they know a dog was used? Can you give me that?
Yeah, well, it is an assumption because of obviously the large numbers that would have been rounded up.
Right.
And if somebody, I don't know, for example, was using other means, shouting, whistling, etc., and making a noise, then that would obviously have attracted interest in the area.
Mm-hmm.
So, there's certain things you have to sort of think, well, if somebody's doing that,
mm-hmm.
How are they going to get them into transportation vehicles? And some sort of sheepdog would be the ideal tool to do that.
Right.
So, because we can't say, a sheepdog was seen in the area and stuff like that.
Right.
That's not the case.
That's not the case. Yeah? So it's just made that up about the sheepdog. It's bullshit. There's no evidence of a sheepdog. So can we believe that there's evidence of a broken lock? So I went to the farmer's house. I knocked on his door. A young girl answered the door, and she says, "Oh no, he's away on holiday in Florida." I thought, has he got the compensation yet? Now, I tried to call him again and again and again. He's someone who doesn't answer his phone. All right? So there we go. No physical evidence that I've managed to establish of sheep rustling in that case. Now let's have a look at the other case down here, a place near Newark. I think it's about 20 miles southwest of the original 1500 here. Down here, a place near Newark. I think it's about 20 miles southwest of the original 1500 here. Here it is reported in the Lincolnshire Echo. Around 300 sheep and 120 cattle have been taken in a large-scale theft from a farm in Lincolnshire. Police are looking for witnesses and information about the incident in Brant Broughton. Officers believe offenders forced entry to a field near Beckingham Range and stole the animals between Sunday, July the 26th and Monday, July the 27th. That's this summer, this year. Now, 120 cattle, it is vastly more difficult to rustle cattle than it is sheep. The pen that you've got erect in the field is like this, and to put 120 in, you're talking a big area. And again, much heavier equipment to get it onto the truck. Now, in the article, it said that these animals were taken from Brant Broughton. That's untrue. This is Brant Broughton here. It said a field near Beckingham Range. This is actually a military training camp. It's a firing range, outlined in red here, right? The animals were actually taken from the range. They were grazing on the range, the sheep and the cows, right? They weren't taken from Brant Broughton, as it says in the media article and in the police press release. This is 2 miles away. So there's some funny business going on with that report. They're trying to play down the fact that it's from military land, in my opinion. This is the Beckingham Ranges here. As I said, it's firing ranges. There's a military camp here, and these are what the military use for firing ranges and exercises. But when they're not using it, they have sheep grazing on there. Now this, where I've marked here, this is the entrance point here. You just pull off the motorway and there's a gate there, and that's allegedly where 120 cattle and 300 sheep were taken from in the dead of night, supposedly. Now, here's the police press release, which all of the newspapers cut and pasted and put in their newspapers. And just to reiterate, it says, were taken from a farm in Brant Broughton. Untrue. Right, and it says near to Beckingham Range. They were on the Beckingham Range. See, I would have thought that would have been the central selling point of that story. The newspapers saying 300 sheep and 120 cattle taken from under the MOD's nose. That should have been the important part of that article, but they were playing it down clearly. This is the gate where they were allegedly taken from. Ministry of Defence property, trespassers may be prosecuted. Do not touch any military debris. It may explode and kill you. Would you steal sheep from that land? Right? Now I managed to get there 18 days later. Okay, it's not very soon after, but you can see there's no evidence of rustling on the ground at that point in time. Now this is the camp here, which has oversight of that field. A military camp. This is the gate of the military camp. Defence Infrastructure Organisation, Beckingham Camp. Now, I started going around the local farms and started speaking to people, and I spoke to one farmer, and he straight away, I said, look, I'm looking into these sheep, and immediately he says, if I were interviewed, I would say it was all a fraud. And then he went on to cast huge aspersions against the farmer who was grazing his sheep on that land. He said that the sheep owner is well in with the commandant of the camp, Major John Aspinall. I then spoke to some other people, and I spoke to a guy who I would describe as a person with a highly responsible role in the farming community. And this is just some extracts of what he told me in the phone call. He says, this job at Beckingham, strictly off the record, is a complete load of shit. There was 37 cattle on that range. Nobody has seen 120. I live very close to the range. To gather 120 cattle, building the pens that can stand 120 cattle milling about in it, and then to load them and then pack all the pens away, making sure there was no marks, and wash all the shit off the grass is completely impossible. He was buying lambs out the fat and snipping the tags off the ears and putting in his own tags, which is illegal, by the way. But he was warned about this. It's amazing how the guy has got hold of it all, and I would think it's a complete den of conspiracy and underhandedness, because he came there with nothing and it doesn't stack up to me. And I spoke to another farmer who essentially said the same thing about the farmer who grazes his sheep on that land. So I decided to ring Major John Aspinall, who's allegedly well in with the farmer, the commandant of this base. He's in charge of the land. Now, I had a couple of phone calls with him. In those phone calls, he said that photographs were not taken, so that we can't see evidence of what was on the ground at the time. He said that the lock was smashed off, and he has that in his possession. I said to him, well, was there 300 sheep then? He says, oh no, I can't confirm that. He says, I couldn't tell you how many sheep there were. And then I said to him, well, it said on the press release there was 120 cattle. He says, oh no, 20 cattle. Definitely 20 cattle, not 120. All right, and he did say that there was shit on the ground, but it had all been cleaned up. All right, so let's look at this press release by the police. It's incorrect. 20 cattle, not 120 cattle. We think that the 300 claim is also incorrect. It didn't take place at a place called Brant Broughton. It didn't take place at a place near Beckenham Range. It took place at a place on Beckenham Range. So nearly everything in that press release is incorrect. And so I rang the police to tell them that. The rustling...
In relation to the sheep and the cattle that was stolen,
yeah.
There were no photos taken at the time.
Right, okay.
It was just, obviously, the incident was reported and inquiries were ongoing, but there was no photographs taken at the time.
Are you PC Lawson?
I am, yeah.
All right, okay. So did you not go to the scene then?
I did go to the scene, yes.
All right, okay. So it's just the press release from the police says 120 cattle.
That's right. That's what was that was information given to me, yeah, at the time.
Right. Okay. Well, I've been given information by, well, the commandant of the base,
right,
who's responsible for the land there.
Right.
There was only 20 cattle.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I mean, the numbers that were given to me were clear numbers given to me at the time.
Right.
Obviously, you know. I can't obviously go into it too much about, you know, but the numbers that were put out in the press release were the numbers that were quoted to me at the time of reporting the incident.
Right,
and
okay.
I have had some information from sources to suggest that the numbers might not be correct. So
it looks like fraud, agree? The clear numbers given to me at the time, but I've had information from other sources, so looks like an insurance job to me. So what can we say about these three cases? I suspect all of them, I don't know they are, but I suspect they're all inside jobs. They're not mass rustling incidents where you've got 4 and 5 wagons turning up in the middle of the night, highly sophisticated operations. They're dodgy farmers. That, in my opinion. But why can't we ascertain this when we look at our mainstream media? Yeah? We just get fed shit, as I've said at the beginning. Right? Because they never provide any evidence of anything. And you've got to go and investigate these cases. It took me a long time to get to the bottom of this. But if you're just going to work every day and looking at the newspaper, what chance have you got to find out the truth when we've got such woeful police and woeful media reporting? This is Alison Pratt from the National Farmers Union. Alison Pratt, a spokesman from the National Farmers Union, said, "These type of thefts obviously happen at night where fields are isolated, so there are no witnesses around. The culprits behind this must have been very organised and know how to handle sheep and dogs. So it could suggest that they have been in the business. They will have got to know the routine of the shepherd. It was a well set up job with specialist transport." Just have a listen to this for your own entertainment.
Hello, Alison Pratt speaking.
Hello Alison, my name's Richard Hall. I'm doing some research into the missing sheep in Lincolnshire.
Oh, are you?
Yeah.
Which ones?
Well, I've looked into...
few lots gone recently.
Yes, I've looked into the ones at Beckenham Range.
Oh, yes.
Have you actually been to that site?
No, I'm just the region's communications advisor. I don't deal
Right,
with
so-
thefts or anything like that. All I do is talk about it.
Right. Okay. So can I ask where you got your information from for that particular one?
I think the Sleaford paper rang me on that one.
Say again.
The Sleaford Target, I think it was. They
Right.
rang me and said, did I have a comment on it?
Did you have a comment on it? Okay.
Yes, and all I said was, it's an exceptionally large amount of sheep, and they must have been very organised.
Right. Okay. Now, I'm very doubtful that there's been any theft at all from that particular field. Firstly, because it's military-controlled land where the sheep were taken from, and if you drive around that area, every 100 yards or so, there's a big sign saying, if you touch anything on this land, it may well explode and kill you. Now, I've also spoken to the person who owns the sheep on that military land, and he denied owning the sheep, even though he did own the sheep. And I've also been told by another farmer that he's been changing ear tags at Newark auctions. Now, I suspect it's a fraud. The 120 cattle. I spoke to another farmer, and he laughed when I said 120 had been taken from that particular land. Now,
Sorry, Richard, can I just ask what your interest is in it, and why you're calling? And are you something to do with insurance, or?
no, not insurance. It's just I make films about unexplained phenomena.
Oh, right.
You see, there was a
Well, this was definitely UFOs that came and took the sheep, I think.
well, I made a film about the 1500 which went missing at Stenigott.
Oh, yes.
Right.
The Dennis Estates ones, yes.
Now the particular theft, if it was a theft, which this didn't appear in the newspaper, the gate was still locked with the padlock intact. There was only one gate that the sheep could have gone from. Okay. Now that looked like it could have been an insurance job, right? Because there was no evidence that any sheep had passed through that entrance, right? I spoke to the detective, and now I spoke to the sheep owner, and I also spoke to the shepherd. The shepherd was arrested with his family, and he was under suspicion for several months, but they could find no evidence against him. And I also had a witness who saw the 1,500 sheep in the field the night before. It's all in my film. I made a film in 2012 about this. Now, there have been sightings of massive UFOs in that area around that time, right? Now, the 600 which have gone near Melton Ross, again, if you look at the photographs of Jason Steeper at the gate there, there's no sheep being through that gate. There's no wool, there's nothing. Now, if you were going to steal sheep, would you steal them from military land, which is observed by the military and signposts saying that you may well get shot if you come on this land? The farmer wasn't even able to tell me what gate they'd come through or where they'd parked the wagon. I don't know what's gone on with the one at Beckenham Ranges, but I don't believe they've been rustled. I believe those existed. I believe the ones at Melton Ross may have existed, and the ones at Stenigott may have existed, but you need to realise there's no evidence in any of these cases of rustling. It said in one of the articles that there was a sheepdog. I've rang the police and they've told me there was no sheepdog, or there's no evidence of a sheepdog. They've assumed that there's a sheepdog. None of these cases there's evidence of tyre tracks, wool or droppings on the ground. I mean, you need to erect a pen in the field to pen them first, and then you need to build a track up onto the wagon. In all of these cases, you would need more than one wagon. The Stenigott one, you would need 5 wagons.
Yes, I know. This was what the thing at the time, that we couldn't work out how
Right.
to do it. And with the Brand Bruton one, we can't
Yeah.
work out.
Now, I interviewed the couple who live right next to the field at Stenigott, and they've got a dog which barks at anyone, right? And they were only 80 yards away from that field, and they didn't hear a peep during the night. So people need to stop reporting these things as rustling, because it's not rustling. The reason why it's not rustling is because there is no evidence of rustling. What evidence do you know of that any of these cases are rustling?
Well, we don't. This is why they're so mysterious, isn't it?
Right, so why do you say in your article the culprits behind this must have been, hang on, the culprits behind this must have been very organised and know how to handle sheep and dogs. So it could suggest that they have been in the business. Now, that statement that you've made there is based on no evidence at all. Would you agree with that?
Exactly, of course it is.
So why are you saying it?
Left for about because I was presented with a story from the paper on which to give a comment, having the background in farming that I do.
So why are you assuming that there must be culprits?
Because there is no other logical explanation.
Yeah, but why assume that then if there's no other logical explanation?
Because that's the only explanation.
No, it's not. No, it's not. You go on the evidence. Why don't you just state what the evidence is? Why don't you just say, well, the animals aren't there. There's no evidence.
Really out of my ken. All I was asked to do was to provide a statement to the newspaper. All I said was that, in my opinion, it was a very organised theft. When the police were investigating him, I couldn't say anything.
Well, I suggest you go and speak to the local farmers there, because they will tell you one of them.
It's my job to do that. My job is to represent the farming industry to the press, and that's what I did. So I'm very grateful for your call, but I'm going to end it now. Okay?
Right.
Bye for now.
Bye now. Okay, so I'm just going to finish by saying what I said at the start. If you accept information without evidence, expect shit. Thank you. Welcome back. Now, following on from this lecture, I need to make several points. The first is that I am not accusing any individual of any crime. If crimes have been committed, then that's up to the police to find evidence and pursue that. What I am saying is that having investigated these 3 cases of extremely large numbers of sheep going missing, I could not find any evidence of large-scale sheep rustling. I suspect there has been no large-scale sheep rustling. But what I do believe, and this is a belief, it's not been expressed as a fact, I believe or I suspect that the 3 cases have involved either fraud or small